Hi, this is 365801 and this is our reading wrap up for week 4, January 2022. As usual, there is a little stack of physical titles there to see, a little bit more than usual because there are the Love Stage volumes that I read this week, but overall it's quite a good week as well in terms of audiobooks, ebooks and physical. Now, one book that I will not be talking about is one that I was anticipating. It's my most anticipated release of 2022 and it was supposed to come out, as far as I was aware, on the 27th of January. At least that's what it was down on Amazon, and that's Raven by Piper Scott and Virginia Kelly, who's also in Van Dorn. It's the 8th book in the series and it suddenly disappeared on the 27th because it's not available. So I'm assuming that the authors have not completed it yet, or they don't have everything sorted out. Maybe they're going to wait until they get the audiobook version as well, so they can all release everything at the same time. I don't know. There's been no announcement. Maybe that was just a placeholder for the book and there's an actual release date later on in the year. So I now must wait even longer for the one thing that I'm desperate to read. So I guess we should address the elephant in the room first of all, and that is Love Stage. I released a vlog yesterday, so you can check out that incredibly long vlog where I mostly just confused and angry. I think that's the best way to describe me. Confused as to, like, what's going on? Why is this happening? Why is this not how I remember this series being? And also a bit of anger towards how the series actually is compared to how I remember it, because I remember it with fondness. I remember it being like, oh, this is a lovely sweet thing, and then actually reading it I'm like, oh see, now this is why all these Gen Zers are always saying, God, all those old Fujos with their problematic BL, and we're like, shut up, it's not problematic. You're just like, new to the game. And then you read it and you're like, shit, this is fucking awful. Because it's really bad. It's really bad. It's definitely worth a second read after years of having it in my collection and me just being like, oh yeah, this is a sweet, cute series. It's really nicely drawn. It's lovely. It's lovely. The drawings are brilliant. The jokes are not that funny, and the assault is not funny. I did not enjoy this due to the prevalence of multiple occasions of sexual assault or near rape at one point. Oh my god, I'm like, it was too much. Anyway, so Love Stage, I finished volume 3, which I had just started on the Monday. I finished volume 4, volume 5, volume 6 and volume 7. I had read up to halfway through volume 5, so the end of volume 5, volume 6 and volume 7 were new to me, and I had no idea what was happening while I was reading it. So it is what it is. It's not something I would necessarily recommend, and so definitely not for newbies to the genre at all. Anyway, I'm really glad that I was able to do this as a buddy read with Katie, because honestly I would not have completed it if I hadn't had in the back of my mind the thought that I need to finish this as a buddy read, because we're doing this together, and I feel like she probably feels the same way, that without knowing that there's someone else there who's like, hey, have you finished yet? Hey, what volume are you on? I would have given up. So I'm really glad that she was there. So thank you, Katie, once again, for forcing me to read this. Now, the other big thing that I read this week was Charlie Sunshine. This is book 2 in the Close Proximity series by Lily Morton. I did a whole video on this trilogy. I'll put a link in the corner. I really love this. This was a tonic, and this was something that I really wanted to read, and so it did take me longer to get through Love Stage because I kept being like, this is terrible, I need to read something that I actually enjoy. And I had purchased the audiobook Now, I have read this already, obviously, but because this was a new release of the audiobook version and Joel Leslie's narration is just absolutely delightful, and because Charlie Sunshine is literally the name of the character, he's Charlie Burrows, he is kindness personified, he is a darling, he's a librarian, so obviously I'm gonna love him, and he is coming to realize that he is in love with his childhood best friend. So it's a very sweet childhood friends to lovers, sweet, very low angst, low drama, and it's just a gorgeous little cute wee story with a bit of smexiness. There is dealing with a newish diagnosis of epilepsy, so that's something else that's in there. So that's a really sweet little story about two people just finding out, oh, we are actually made for each other, whereas everyone around them has actually had bets on when they're going to get together. It was a really sweet, cute story, and I'm really glad that I got to experience it through the audiobook version. Now, in Charlie Sunshine, there is a minor character called Doug Henshaw, and he is a PE teacher at a school, and he kind of gets his own little spin-off novella in Playground Games. Now, I have read Playground Games as well. This is a little extra that you get if you sign up for Lily Morton's newsletter email that she sends out. And I was quite happy to read it in December, and I actually just wanted to read it again because Doug turned up and I wanted to read Doug's story again, because it's a really cute little story about two teachers who actually have the hots for each other but think that they're not good enough for each other. So they have that in common. They're a foreign language teacher called Gus and Doug, who's the PE teacher, and they both have to go away together as the chaperone teachers for their year sixes. So they're kind of like primary sevens in Scotland. And usually at the final year of elementary school, primary school, the final year students get to go on a trip somewhere. And I have done that myself as a teacher, so I really enjoyed the realism of it all. I also enjoyed reading a Goodreads review which said that it was so unrealistic that there was so many children throwing up and hurting themselves. And I thought, wow, they've obviously not been on a trip away with kids before, because that is exactly what happened. It felt very realistic when you're like, no, you cannot eat all of these sweets. Why did your mother give them to you? There's no way the mother would give them to you if they were at home. Why is she giving them to you knowing that you're going to be on a trip with teachers having to look after you who are underpaid and having to be overworked? So no, it felt very realistic. The only unrealistic thing was that there was a hunky, gorgeous PE teacher ready to sweep me off my feet. That didn't happen. Where's my Doug Henshaw? That's what I want to know. Anyway, it was super, super cute, especially because they were skiing and they were in Chamonix, and it just sounded delightful. Hot chocolate and snowy Alps and everything. Nice. Now, obviously, I'm trying to read more in the Futekia library, and I am trying to keep up with some of the newer releases, and so I read Unfazed by the Disaster in My Life by Shimaji. This is a 2-volume series, but the first volume is out now, and the second volume will be released on the 25th of February, which is also incidentally the same day that the next Pink Heart Jam is out too. So I've got 2 things to look forward to now. This story follows Masato and Mitsukuni, and they were kind of rivals in middle school, although Masato really considered himself a rival to Mitsukuni, and Mitsukuni didn't even notice that Masato was really there. But they're all grown up now, and they're like 41, 42 years old, so they're elderly men, they're older men, and I'm like, fantastic, this is exactly what I'm here for. They end up having to kind of cohabit due to the fact that there's been a fire in Masato's apartment. Everyone at his restaurant is like, oh, this guy you used to go to school with, here's your pal, he'll put you up. And they end up kind of sleeping together, but by sleeping I mean they actually just slept together in the same bed and had a really great sleep. I guess when you're in your 40s, you're like, wow, that's hot. because because they do end up like kind of having this weird relationship that they develop over time. But I also kind of like the fact that it wasn't straight away sexual. It was kind of a slightly slow burn. Not too slow, but it definitely felt interesting. There was a lot of adult things like daughters and divorce and money savings and things like this. It was a comedy, but it was also very gentle. It kind of reminded me a lot of What Did You Eat Yesterday, because Masato is also a chef, and you know, one of them's the kind of outgoing, happy, gregarious type, and the other is much more serious and also a lawyer. It's kind of very much What Did You Eat Yesterday, except one of them's a chef and one of them's a lawyer. So the lawyer isn't the chef in this story. That's just how it is. So it definitely got that kind of feel about it. Slice of life, a little bit of drama, a little bit of comedy, just general chill vibes. And it was exactly what I needed after all of the rage that I had felt earlier in the week. Now, another thing that I picked up and ended up listening to as an audiobook, once again, because I just felt like I needed something to, you know, keep me warm and make me feel all cozy, and something that was just another comfort listen. And so I did another listen of Johnny, which is by Cardano C, and this is the slightly weird siphon lion shifter romance. I do remember, like, this was the audiobook that kind of got me into male romance audiobooks last year, because I was like, this looks like a pile of trash, this is gonna put me off, and I absolutely loved it. It was so silly. It's about a boy who is a siphon, which means he's the lion shifter who can siphon off the magic of the premier, who is the leader of the lion pack. Is that the name? But he doesn't have a name. He's just known as the siphon, and he for 10 years has been just in the background with no one talking or interacting, and so he is really trying to end his life in a way so that he can just leave this prison of an existence that he's in. And of course no one even notices that he's feeling this way, because he can't actually do it, because he's got so much magic in him, until he finally does manage to do something. And that's when Hugh, the premier, the main leader of this group of lions, magic leader of the group of lions, finally notices him, and so they end up spending time together, and they end up realizing that they are in love, and that they fall in love and spend time. And it's just a sweet little story. It's quite a short one. It's got a little bit of action in it, and sometimes you just want some shifter love, man. Sometimes you just want some shifter love. So as part of my physical titles, I also completed volume 4 of What Did You Eat Yesterday by Fumi Yoshinaga. This is something that I'm going to continue on into February and see if I can get the next 4 or 5 volumes done. That'll take me up to volume 9, hopefully. It was one of the good purchases I got last year, so I'm hoping to be able to at least get to that one. This one, volume 4, was kind of interesting. It said on the back, Shiro turns down an offer to become a celebrity, and Kenji's culinary adventures are reprised in a manga about a gay couple for mature, in the true sense, readers. And it really did feel like very mature, bittersweet kind of volume, this one. It starts off with a very odd thing, and I think this is the kind of thing that Fumi Yoshinaga later on, like in a more modern interview, kind of felt like she didn't quite get right. Like, she apologized to some gay man that she knows, and he was like, nah, it's cool, it's fine, don't worry about it. But she was like, I definitely got some things wrong. And it starts off with the four of them having dinner at a restaurant. Is it Yoshi and Tits and Kenji and Shiro? they're all having dinner, and then the couple next to them kind of stop talking as they're listening to the conversation that the four men are having, because Japanese are nosy people and they're always doing that. And then they kind of were silent and then walked home going, they were gay. Must have been gay. And it's like, why? Because they were talking about organic seasonings, and because they were talking about furniture. And Shiro just says, he kind of gets angry thinking that someone, a random stranger, has figured out that he's gay, or has the opinion that maybe he's gay. And I'm like, that's a bit odd. Like, is that so much internal, not just homophobia, but also fear of being found out to be gay? It's that, like, I understand it, but at the same time it felt a bit odd, because when I lived in Japan, I worked with so many middle-aged men who lived alone, and they would go out and they would have meals together, and they would talk about, the food that they ate, or clothes that they needed to buy, or the furniture in their tiny little apartments that they lived on their own, or their houses that they lived on their own in, or the cars that they bought. And one of them bought like a big family vehicle, and he was just like so happy to have such a lovely big nice family vehicle. He didn't have a family, he didn't have a wife, didn't have, so many of the people I worked with were single because either they didn't have the means or the inclination to become committed into a relationship, or they had already done that. They got married and they were getting divorced or had already divorced. So many of them were in their 40s and 50s and they lived alone. So many. I had one of the teachers that I worked with. He was so happy to be single and the age that he was. He had full autonomy, full control, and had no issues at all about not having someone in his life. So many of them had either been divorced or had just never gotten married. And they weren't all gay, but they would have these normal conversations like buying a sofa for their apartment and being excited about it. It's not a gay conversation. So I just felt that was a little bit odd. There was also so many conversations about this. Like when the producer wanted Shiro to be on the TV show, and at the point where he said, "We've met before at Nichome, you're one of us," and it was at that point that the atmosphere shifted completely, and the producer's like, "Okay, cool, got ya. You don't want to do it because of privacy. Cool." And it's like, how sad that is the case. And it's probably still the case, and that's what makes it even sadder, because it's been a long time since I last lived there. There's just so many little things. There's cute moments as well, like with Kenji trying to look after Shiro when he's sick, or the apple story with the boss lady. Although her not getting along with her daughter-in-law, and then her also not getting along with her mother-in-law, and the phrase that her mother-in-law used when her husband had died, I was like, that is a gut punch, and it's exactly the kind of evil manipulative thing that a woman would say to another woman. It is like, women are the worst. Oh, the claws being out. And it's the kind of thing that I just know so many Japanese women have to deal with. Evil mother-in-laws. And it's funny because she's like, kind of like, well, I guess that's what I am now. I don't know. It was a really great volume, but it was also kind of a bit sad. The whole thing about the friend who had the onions, and the husband, her husband, who wants their daughter to have a child, and because he's now available. And I loved how everyone just turned in and is like, no, it's your own issue that you're retired now. Find a hobby. And just little things like Kenji's boss being, a cheater on his wife, and how he just like, oh, again. But also the fact that he himself is just lonely and he's sad and he needed someone to vent to. It does feel like both of them are like sounding boards to other people in this volume, and yet right at the end after that, the two of them are like, they'd had their kind of evening apart, they hadn't had their daily dinner together, and they both really liked it, and it was a sweet little ending to this volume. Anyway, there's always these little stories, they're just so delightful. So yeah, volume 4 was a bittersweet one, and I enjoyed it a lot. Now, I just kind of noticed that we were coming to the end of January and I hadn't actually ever mentioned Pian, and it was being released, so I've been reading it whenever it's been released on either the 1st, the 11th or the 21st this month, but I haven't actually included it in any of my wrap-ups so far. It's okay at the moment. The main couple have kind of got to a point where they're very much, they're kind of at that conclusion stage. And also the side couple, who I'm absolutely desperate to see kind of get their story started, have kind of disappeared off in and I'm wondering like, okay, can we get back to them now? Because I like the main couple. I was really rooting for them in terms of them getting to there, and now that they're kind of at the established, we both love each other and we are now kind of going to be a couple and we are soulmates moment, I've lost all interest. This is just what happens. So I'm 100% now focused on the side couple, who I am utterly convinced are going to have the most explosive relationship. It's going to be great. There's probably going to be violence. I think they will choose war rather than really be with each other. I'm kind of looking forward to it. And the guy who is the bad guy needs to get fucked. I'm like, get fucked. It's something that you say in Scotland, like, you get fucked. But actually, he needs to get fucked. I need to see that happen because he is a dick and he needs to get dicked down. That's just how it is in Pian. So I was going to talk about the things that I'm currently reading, and I was going to say I'm currently reading Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall, but I'm not, because I actually finished it early hours of this morning. My plan was to read this and do a standalone review video. That's still my plan, so that's what I'm going to do, so I'm not going to talk about it in this video. Now, I also have a couple that I have down on my currently reading. If I'm honest, if this gets out by Sophie Gonzalez, I have been reading on and off pretty much all January, but I'm only around 16 to 20% through it. I'm enjoying it and I want to finish it soon, so that's going to be like my first February try and get that finished. I also started Inside Affair, which is the first book in a trilogy of books called Primetime by Ella Frank. Ella Frank is quite a big name in male romance, so I just randomly picked one of hers, and I kind of feel like I must have picked the wrong one, because then I looked at some of the reviews and people were like, oh, it was so good to hear blah 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 story, and I was like, well, if this is the first one in a trilogy, I thought it would be safe, but actually I think one of the characters is a spin-off character from some other series. It definitely felt like that as soon as I started reading it, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm in the wrong story. And my sort of my kind of pedantic brain is like, no, you have to read the books in order and in the right order so that you know who all the characters are, because I did this with Lily Morton and I read them out of order and I shouldn't have done that. So I'm thinking, stop where I am, because one, I'm not really enjoying it, and two, I know that there's other stuff that I will get out of this if I already know some of the characters. Anyway, Ella Frank is not really doing it for me at the moment, but I'm only around 55% into this first book, but it's like meh so far. So I kind of feel like maybe I should just stop and then go to one of her earlier works and then read in order of publication, so that it's much more I don't know, is it appropriate to do that? I just feel like I'm missing out on knowing some characters if I don't do it properly. I'm very much about doing things properly. So yeah, I have a couple of things that I have read or started reading, but I haven't finished yet. So these are in my currently reading pile. So that is everything that I read in the 4th week of January. 11 titles, not including Pian, that would be 12, and not including my currently reading, that's another 2 titles as well. 6 print volumes and 5 digital or in ebook / audiobook form. I'm quite happy with what I read. I enjoyed reading, or at least it gave me opinions. But I do think that I'm reading a little bit too much. I think that's 11 titles this week, and I do want to reduce and take my time because I feel like I'm reading too much at the moment. I do hope, fingers crossed, to be able to get some statistics videos out. I want to keep track of what I'm reading, and oh my goodness, January I read loads. I think it's well over 50 titles, which is way too many. So I do think I need to do like a breakdown of my statistics. So hopefully, fingers crossed, look forward to that video. I do think that having opinions on manga is fine. If you are interested in opinions, go check out that reading vlog of Love Stage. And if you're interested in the male romance that I talked about, the close proximity video as well. I am 365-801 and I make videos about male romance, BL, manga, yaoi, and all that good stuff. Remember, every day is a BL day. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye!